Hello everyone, Squashadamus here, and in this video I'll be going over my first impressions of the game Outriders based on the demo that was released a few days ago on February 25th. This is roughly a month in advance of the full game's official release date on April 1st, so I'm going to be making the assumption that a lot of the gameplay we experience in the demo will directly reflect what we will be getting in the full game, minus some optimization issues such as with motion blur and frame rate buffering, which have been already addressed by the developers on Twitter. To begin, Outriders is a third-person shooter looter game with an emphasis on the use of cover and abilities, which to me resembled other games such as Gears of War or Mass Effect, so some potential there if you like those kinds of games. The demo is free to play right now, so after watching this video, if it looks like something you would enjoy, but didn't like what I had to say about certain aspects of it, you can download and play it for free for your own experience before having to spend the $60 for the full game. I'll be going over a few key parts of the game in this video, those being first, the story, second, the combat system, third, the UI and the quality of life, and lastly, my final thoughts and maybe some concerns I have with the full release right around the corner. Timestamps for each of these parts will be in the description below. So with that, let's get into it. Starting off with the story, the beginning of Outriders was a little rough for me. While the game did a good enough job explaining who you were, what happened to you, and why you were going to this new planet named Enoch, the pacing just felt slow, and the game really held your hand through most of the events in the beginning. You don't get into the meat of the game and actually begin to experience what Outriders really is until, for me, 30 to 40 minutes into playing. However, once you are past the beginning stages of the game, everything picks up pace and becomes really enjoyable. The whole atmosphere of the game quickly turns from hopeful and bright to holy shit, there are bodies hanging everywhere and the world's about to end. Again. As soon as the atmosphere shifts to this darker theme, you really get to understand what kind of a game Outriders is going to be. And it's only slightly serious. The game likes to ride the line of dark, goofy humor while telling its story, and the sooner you notice this, the better the story can feel because you don't take all the beats as seriously as you would in other games. Some characters straight up die within the first few moments of getting introduced. So it's still too early to tell how exactly the story will play out through the whole game. However, as long as you play through it with expectations being that you're going to laugh at some corny jokes along the way, it seems like it will be enjoyable overall. There are some issues with the voice acting, I think. There's a couple screams that are just kind of cringy. And besides that, just some of the interactions between characters just seems a little off. I'm thinking this is where the game's dark, goofy humor comes in, though. And it makes those character interactions just kind of not what we'd all expect to hear, but also it fits the tone that they're trying to set. Next, I wanted to go over the combat system, as this is the main part of the game that I believe has gotten everyone's attention. Once you unlock your powers, which is after the 30 to 40 minutes of prologue, you're given the option of choosing between 4 different classes, each with their own respective abilities and ways to play. Starting off with the Technomancer, which is meant for longer range and has deployable gadgets to assist you in combat. It is based around the cryo damage category. Next, you have the Pyromancer, which is for medium-range combat and inflicting multiple grouped enemies with fire damage. You also have the Trickster, which is meant for close-quarters combat, and it's more of the hit-and-run style of close-quarters combat. And it is based around the electric damage. And lastly, we have the Devastator, which is your tank close-quarters combat class. And it is based around the ground damage type. One very unique aspect of Outriders is that in combat, the only way that you heal is by either damaging or defeating enemies in ways that pertain to your class. This makes it to where you are actually punished for hiding behind cover for too long and rewarded for going out and getting in the enemy's face. I believe the Technomancer heals based on damage done to enemies. The Pyromancer heals based on enemies defeated while affected with their fire abilities, and the Trickster and Devastator heal based on enemies defeated while in close vicinity to them. So you get a lot of variety there in the playstyle that you can choose. However, I had some difficulty with the cover system, and it was a bit wonky for me. I often found myself hitting the button to go into cover, and instead of my character going to cover, they would just stand there being pelted with bullets. So I don't know if this is by design, that the cover system doesn't work flawlessly, because you are encouraged to move around and be engaged with the enemy more than you are to be in cover. But the abilities also are the main unique aspect of the combat, and it very much heavily relies on your abilities. Almost to the point where I believe the guns were left as an afterthought, because most of your damage do come from your abilities, and you're using your guns to finish up any kills. There are some mods, and I believe the mods are a strong point for this game, and I'll get into those further in a moment, but there are some mods on the gun that have class-like abilities tied to them. But even then, with the cooldowns on your abilities being so quick, you're almost waiting between abilities before moving on and fighting more enemies. I almost found myself waiting, okay, I have 2 seconds maybe until I get this ability. I'm going to wait for that, and then I'll move in. So, that being said, I have not gotten any legendary guns yet. It seems like those are pretty rare, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't know how effective those will be in combat. There, I believe, was a legendary gun that one of the enemies used that you would fought against, and it seemed like it was rather effective, but until I get my actual hands on it, I can't have any further opinion on that. But circling back to the mods in this game, I do believe that is probably one of the best features that it offers. Both guns and armor can have unique mods. Generally, your guns will have mods just pertaining to the weapons, either affecting the amount of damage, the type of elemental effect it has, or status it envelops onto your targets. But the armor plays directly into your abilities, and I believe that's very clever how they implemented that. You could have more uses of a certain ability, more charges of that ability. You could have more intensity of that ability, whether it deals more damage, lasts longer, and it gives you a lot of customability there that I don't believe a lot of other games have. And another cool feature with the mods that they implemented was that when you dismantle a weapon or piece of armor that has a mod on it, you now have that mod available to slot onto other guns or armor. So if you have a favorite mod that you like, but you get a new gun that either does more damage, or you get a piece of armor that has more armor rating, you can change out the mods on that piece of armor or piece or weapon. So it's very fortunate, and it's very forgiving for you that you don't have to change guns just because, oh, well, the perk on this is better. I mean, on the mod on this is better. I know other games make you do that to where, oh, well, unless I have this material, I can't power up this weapon, and I will no longer have this perk. So I thought that was very clever for them to do. And so I think the combat is in a very good spot as far as starting things off goes. Like I said with the guns, even though they do feel like an afterthought compared to the abilities, they do feel good for a third-person shooter. The assault rifles feel very good. The shotguns feel good. The sniper rifles, if you get a scoped one, can feel a little off, but the non-scoped rifles feels pretty good, because the scoped rifles just have a little bit of sway that's tough to adjust to, but the sway is worth the reward as far as when you do land headshots, you get a decent amount of damage. So guns can still be effective, and they are effective. You have an auto shotgun which just rips through people. But so overall, I think the combat will be very much enjoyable going through the game. It does scale based on how many are in your party and what level you are, so that level of difficulty is very much welcome in my sense. I like having a little bit of difficulty in your battles. I felt like early on you just kind of ripped through everybody because you had all your abilities and they were so strong. But once I got with some friends of mine, the difficulty did go up a little bit, and we weren't able to just run through everything. We had to kind of take our time moving through it. So that was kind of a welcome change too. So moving on to my third point that I wanted to talk about with the UI and the quality of life in this game. It's going to be a short section, but there was just one thing I really wanted to touch on because it did strike me as being just awesome that they thought of this and did this and really thought about the player's time. But when you're in your inventory and you have some armor or some weapons that you want to get rid of, rather than just having to delete each piece of armor or each weapon individually, you can select every piece of armor and every weapon that you want to get rid of, and then just hold on PC the delete key, and they're gone. You dismantle them, you get your materials, and you can go on. It saves a bunch of time compared to some other games, and I think that's just a great appreciation of the player's time as far as that goes. So that was the UI that I wanted to touch on. I know it's not a big section, and there's really not much else. I mean, your HUD is very organized. Your abilities are right there at the bottom. As far as when your abilities are up, you just have a little timer that is grayed out until it gets all the way 360 around. So it's very user-friendly. It's very convenient. It's very nice to look at, and I think they did a good job as far as that goes. There was one aspect of the game that, as a quality of life thing, kind of is a pet peeve for me, and it was the loading screens that they used to transitions between different instances. One particularly was you come up on this ravine, and rather than jumping over in real time, you have to go through a cutscene to do so. So I know the game's just doing that so it can load different instances, but it shows that the game truly is an open world. But moving on to my fourth and final point, my concerns and final comments on the game. Overall, I think Outriders has some potential, but that's also a dangerous statement to make because there's been other games that had potential that were looter shooters that dropped the ball upon release. So that being said, I'm being optimistic as far as the game goes. I will most likely be spending $60 and checking it out when it comes out. It is not a live service game, so what you buy is what you get as far as that goes. It will have a definite ending from the sounds of it. However, there is some end game that the developers mentioned where you can get through some world tiers and fight through, I believe, their expeditions. And you can work through those expeditions till you get to the final one, and that acts as your end game. They're going to be completely new experiences. You're not going to be replaying any missions like some other games do. So I think that alone kind of helps up its value as far as playability goes. As far as my concerns with the legendaries, I do think that is a concern for me as far as respect for a player's time, since they are all random drops, and as far as I know, at this time, there are no quests that you can do to get any of these legendaries. So there's some concern there as far as respect for the player's time and getting legendaries. But other than that, and some nitpicking with the voice acting or the story, I do think Outriders should be a very decent game that everyone should look into. And I'm looking forward to it to come out within the next month. So that is it for the video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. I hope to do more videos like these on some other games for first impressions, and maybe some review videos too, depending on the amount of time I have. I do stream on Twitch. My schedule's a little off right now, but I'm trying to do every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, usually in the evenings. And there you can catch me playing anything between Destiny 2, Phasmophobia, Hell Let Loose. It just depends who is online as far as my friends go or what I'm feeling like playing at the time. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and please leave a comment down below if there's anything you would like to discuss, and we can do that. So hope everyone enjoyed the video, and thanks for stopping by.